The trial chamber on Valorum Prime was massive. Thousands of alien species filled the seats, watching as the humans stood alone in the center. Captain Haon wore his blue uniform, standing straight despite the chains on his wrists. Above him, the three judges sat on floating platforms made of crystal and metal. Their eyes showed no emotion as they looked down at the human. Haon had been in space for 5 years. He commanded the exploration ship called Taigok, traveling to distant worlds and meeting new species. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only learned to travel faster than light 15 years ago. Most aliens thought humans were primitive and weak. They laughed at human emotions and called them children playing in the stars. 3 months ago, Yoon and his crew found a planet called Millith. The people there looked like tall birds with 4 arms and gentle eyes. They had cities and art and families. They also had a problem. Their planet's core was unstable. Volcanoes were erupting everywhere. The ground shook constantly. Scientists on Millith knew their world was dying, but they had no spaceships. They had no way to escape. Hyun watched from orbit as millions of Millith people ran from the lava and fire. He saw children crying. He saw parents trying to protect their families. The Taigok had enough cargo space to save maybe 50,000 people. It was not enough to save everyone, but it was something. His crew looked at him. Dr. Mina asked the question everyone was thinking. "Captain, what do we do?" Hyun knew the law. The Galactic Council had made it very clear. Advanced species must never interfere with less advanced species. The Millith people had not invented space travel yet. By council law, they were Category 5. Category 5 species must develop on their own or die on their own. Any interference was the worst crime in the galaxy. Hyun looked at the screen. A Millith mother was holding 2 small children running from a wave of lava. He made his decision in 3 seconds. "We're going down there. Everyone who can fit on this ship is coming with us." The crew worked for 6 days without sleep. They landed the Taigok again and again, loading people into every available space. The cargo holds filled with families. The hallways became sleeping areas. Even the engine room had people sitting against the walls. They saved 200,000 Millith people before the planet's surface became too dangerous to land. Hyun carried many children himself. Their parents touched his hands and made sounds that meant thank you in their language. One old Millith man looked at Hyun with tears in his 4 eyes and said in broken human language, "You are savior. We remember." Always remember, the council found out 3 days later. Ships surrounded the Taigok. Hyun was arrested and brought to Valorum Prime. His crew was sent back to Earth. The trial began immediately. The prosecutor was a Valorian named Thel. His body was made of living crystal that reflected rainbow colors. He spoke with a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Captain Hyun violated the first law. He interfered with a Category 5 civilization. This law exists for good reasons. When advanced species interfere, the lesser species becomes dependent. They never learn to solve their own problems. They become pets, not equals. Captain Hyun's emotions made him break the most important law we have. Hyun was given a chance to defend himself. He stood at the center platform and spoke clearly. "I understand the law. I knew I was breaking it. But I could not watch millions of innocent people die when I had the power to save them. The Millith people are not lesser than us. They have families. They have dreams. They deserved a chance to live," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "Humans have a saying. It goes like this: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I could not do nothing. If that makes me a criminal, then I accept it. But I will never regret saving those children." The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Thel spoke again. "Your emotions are noted, but emotions do not change the law. The law must be absolute, or we have chaos." The judges called for a vote. There were 500 species in the council. Each species had 1 vote. The results came quickly. 470 species voted guilty. Only 30 voted not guilty. The rest abstained. Chief Arbiter Velmoth stood to announce the sentence. He was the oldest and most respected judge. His crystal body was darker than the others, almost black with age. Captain Heon, you have been found guilty of first law violation. The sentence is death by molecular disintegration. The sentence will be carried out immediately. Do you have final words? Hyun looked up at the thousands of aliens watching. Then he turned to where the human delegation sat. Dr. Mina was there, her face wet with tears. 5 other humans sat with her, all members of Earth's diplomatic team. Hyun smiled at them sadly. Tell Earth, he said loudly. Tell them what happened here today. Tell them I died trying to do the right thing, and tell them to remember. The guards led him to a platform in the center of the chamber. The platform began to glow with blue light. This was the disintegration field. Once activated, it would break apart every molecule in his body. There would be no pain, they said. He would simply stop existing. Hyun refused the blindfold they offered. He wanted to face his death with open eyes. He thought about the Millith children he had carried. He thought about their mothers thanking him. He thought about his crew and how proud he was of them. He thought about Earth, his home planet, that he would never see again. The Arbiter raised one crystal hand. Execute the sentence. The blue light grew brighter. Hyun felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. He looked one last time at Dr. Mina and the other humans. He mouthed 2 words, remember this. Then the light became blinding. Captain Hyun's body began to shimmer and fade. In 3 seconds, he was gone. There was no body, no ashes. Nothing remained except empty space where a human had stood. The execution was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Billions of aliens watched. The council wanted everyone to see what happened to those who broke the first law. They wanted it to be a lesson. Dr. Mina stood up from her seat. Her hands were shaking with rage. Around her, the other humans stood too. They said nothing. They simply walked out of the chamber in silence. On Earth.
Ow.
In homes and cities and space stations, humans watched their screens. They watched as Captain Hyun disappeared into blue light. They heard his final words. Remember this, and humanity did remember. Every single human in the galaxy watched the execution. They watched as the council killed a good man for the crime of showing mercy. They watched as the galaxy declared that compassion was illegal in the halls of Earth's government. Emergency meetings began immediately. In military bases, soldiers prepared for orders. In research stations, scientists began working faster. In homes everywhere, ordinary people felt something growing inside them. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was rage. The council had made a mistake. They thought executing one human would make the others obey. They thought fear would keep Earth in line. They did not understand humans at all. Humans had a long history of being told what they could and could not do. They had a long history of fighting against injustice. They had a very long history of refusing to forgive those who hurt them. The council executed Captain Hayan on a Tuesday afternoon. They thought it was the end of a problem. They were wrong. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The galaxy had just made an enemy of humanity, and humanity never forgot. The silence came overnight. Human ships that had been docked at stations across the galaxy simply left. They did not say goodbye. They did not file departure plans. They just vanished into the darkness of space. Trade agreements that Earth had signed were abandoned without explanation. Human merchants packed their goods and disappeared. Embassy buildings went dark and empty. Within 1 week, there was not a single human vessel in council space. The embassies were locked. Communication channels to Earth received no responses. It was as if humanity had ceased to exist. The council members met to discuss this development. Most were satisfied. Chief Arbiter Velmuth announced that Earth had clearly understood the message. The primitive species had retreated in fear, as expected. Some council members celebrated. The human problem was solved without further violence. They were completely wrong. Commander. Jiho sat in a dark room deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around him, screens glowed with information from across the galaxy. He was the head of Earth's Covert Operations Network, an organization that most humans did not even know existed. When humanity first joined the galactic community, Earth's leaders had made a decision. They would smile and trade and seem friendly, but they would also prepare for the worst. For 15 years, humans had been planting agents in neutral territories. They had been building hidden bases in uncharted systems. They had been stealing technology and reverse engineering it. They had been preparing for the day when the galaxy showed its true face. That day had come. Jiho pressed a button. Across the galaxy, sleeper agents received a simple message. 3 words. Protocol, Ghost active. Within hours, the real work began. Human agents who had been living normal lives as merchants or translators or janitors suddenly activated. They began gathering intelligence. They hacked into databases. They copied classified military plans. They identified weaknesses in council defenses. Most importantly, they stayed invisible. Dr. Sora worked in a research facility, hidden inside an asteroid in the Kuiper Belt. She was humanity's leading physicist, and she had been preparing for this moment for 10 years. When Earth joined the Council, they had gained access to alien technology. Most humans were amazed and grateful. Dr. Sora, suspicious. She had secretly kept copies of every piece of alien technology she could access. She studied it. She found its weaknesses. She improved upon it. Now she briefed Earth's military command through a secure channel. We have advantages they don't know about, she explained to the assembled generals and admirals. The council species are old. They have had the same technology for thousands of years. They stopped innovating because they did not need to innovate. They are comfortable. Humanity is not comfortable. We are still hungry, still desperate, still creative. She showed them new weapons based on quantum field manipulation. She showed them stealth technology that made ships invisible to all known sensors. She showed them propulsion systems that were faster than anything the Council had. 15 years of secret research was about to bear fruit. The Council thinks we are primitive, Dr. Sora said with a cold smile. Let them keep thinking that until it is too late. 6 months after Han's execution, strange things began happening across the galaxy. A convoy of Valorian ships carrying advanced computer processors vanished between star systems. No distress signal was sent. No wreckage was found. The ships simply disappeared. A military base belonging to the Prelim Collective experienced a 3-hour computer malfunction. When systems came back online, everything seemed normal, but their entire classified database had been copied. Someone had walked in digitally, taken what they wanted, and left without a trace. Krell patrol routes started getting intercepted by pirates. The Krell were insectoid aliens with a hive mind. They could coordinate perfectly and were nearly impossible to ambush. Yet somehow, pirates knew exactly where Krell patrols would be and avoided them. The Krell began to suspect their communications were compromised. The Council held another meeting. Some members were starting to worry. Where were the humans? What were they doing? Chief Arbiter Velmuth dismissed these concerns. Humans were hiding like scared children. Nothing more. Ambassador Nari had once been Earth's chief diplomat to the Council. She had smiled and bowed and played the game of galactic politics. She hated every moment of it. Now she stood on the bridge of a ship in the Abyss sector, a region of space so empty that no one bothered to patrol it. It was perfect for humanity's needs. Around her ship floated 300 human vessels. These were not the ships the Council had seen before. These were built in secret shipyards, hidden in dead systems. They were coated in materials that absorbed sensor beams. They moved silently through space. They were invisible to anyone looking for them. Begin Phase 2, Nari ordered. The ships spread out across the galaxy. They did not attack. Not yet. They watched. They listened. They made contact with species that were unhappy under Council rule. There were many such species. Lieutenant Taiyang had served under Captain Heian on the Taigok. He had helped carry Milleth children to safety. He had been there when the Council arrested his captain. Now he commanded a stealth ship called the Silent Blade, and he had a mission. He took his ship to the Milleth homeworld. The planet had stabilized after the volcanic crisis, though much of the surface was still covered in cooling lava. The Millith people had built temporary cities in the safe zones. 200,000 of them lived because of Haon's choice. Taiyang landed his ship in a remote area and made contact with Millith leaders. They recognized him immediately. The old Millith man who had called Huan a savior was there. His name was Korath, and he was now one of the leaders of his people. "Human," Korath said, in much better human language than before. "We heard what the council did. We are sorry. Captain Haon was a good person." Taiyang nodded. "We need your help. The council cannot know that humans are operating in this sector. Can you provide supplies? Intelligence about council movements?" Korath did not hesitate. "We help always. Your captain saved our children. We do not forget. What you need, we provide." This conversation was repeated on dozens of worlds. Species that the council had ignored or exploited were eager to assist humanity. The galaxy was not as unified as the council believed. There were cracks in their perfect order, and humanity was learning exactly where those cracks were in the council chamber. Months after the execution, a junior member raised a concern. Ships were disappearing. Information was being stolen. Something was happening, and they did not understand what. Thel, the prosecutor who had condemned Haon, spoke dismissively. "You are seeing shadows. The humans are gone. They are hiding on their primitive planet, afraid to face us." But that night, Thel received a message on his private communication device. It should have been impossible. His device was encrypted with the best Valorian technology. No one could hack it. Yet there was a message. It was a single image. A picture of Captain Huan standing on the Millith planet, holding a child in his arms. Below the image were words in perfect Valorian language. "We have not forgotten. We have not forgiven. We are coming." Thel tried to trace the message. It was impossible. The message had appeared from nowhere and would route to nowhere. He sat in his crystal chambers, feeling something he had not felt in centuries: fear. Across the galaxy, other council members received similar messages. Some got images. Some got brief videos. Some got just a few words. The content varied, but the message was always the same. Humanity was out there, watching, waiting, preparing. The council began to understand their mistake. Silence was not submission. Humanity had not retreated in fear. They had gone dark to prepare for war, and now, after months of ghost-like operations, humanity was ready for the next phase. On Earth, Commander Jeho looked at reports from agents across the galaxy. Everything was in place. Intelligence gathered. Alliances formed. Weaknesses identified. Technology ready. He opened a secure channel to Earth's military command. "We are ready," he reported. "Give the word, and we move to Phase 3. The order came back immediately. One word: proceed. Humanity had spent months becoming ghosts. Now it was time to become something the galaxy would truly fear. The council had wanted to make an example of Captain Haon. They had wanted to show the cost of breaking their laws. They succeeded. They had shown humanity exactly what kind of galaxy they lived in. A galaxy where mercy was punished with death. A galaxy where the powerful made rules to keep themselves powerful. A galaxy that needed to change, and humanity was about to change it, whether the council wanted it or not. The council emergency session was chaotic. For the first time in 500 years, the chamber was filled with shouting. Species that normally maintained perfect, diplomatic composure were arguing loudly. The reason was simple. Humans had become a threat they could not ignore. Chief Arbiter Velmuth called for order. His voice echoed through the massive chamber until the noise died down. The human question must be resolved. They are operating illegally throughout our territories. They are encouraging rebellion among member species. They have stolen classified information. This cannot continue. A Prelim admiral named Kresh spoke next. The Prelim were aquatic creatures who lived in water-filled suits. Kresh's voice bubbled through his translation device. "I propose a military solution. We send a fleet to Earth itself. We force them to surrender, or we eliminate them entirely. Make them an example like we did with their captain. Many council members agreed. A vote was called. The result was overwhelming. 412 species voted to authorize a military expedition to the Sol system. Earth would be given one chance to surrender. If they refused, the Council would destroy humanity's ability to travel in space. They would trap humans on their own planet forever. General Minho commanded Earth's home defense fleet from a station on Mars. He was a career military officer who had spent 40 years preparing for threats from space. When other humans dreamed of peaceful exploration, Minho had prepared for war. Now his paranoia was about to save his species. 18 hours before the Council's public announcement, Minho received intelligence from Commander Jiho's spy network. The entire invasion plan was in his hands. He knew how many ships were coming. He knew their weapons. He knew their formation strategies. He knew everything. Minho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. He activated Earth's defense protocols. Across the Sol system, hidden weapons platforms came online. They had been disguised as asteroids or debris for 15 years. Now they revealed their true nature. Missile batteries, rail guns, energy weapons, hundreds of platforms positioned throughout the system. The invasion fleet assembled at a location called the Draxus Nexus, just outside Council space. 500 warships from dozens of different species. It was the largest military force ever gathered for a single operation. They were powerful ships with advanced weapons and shields that had protected the Council for millennia. The fleet commander was a Valorian admiral named Thelsek. He was related to Thel, the prosecutor from Haon's trial. Thelsek was proud and confident. He sent a message to Earth on all frequencies. Humans of Earth, you have 1 hour to surrender. Transmit your complete submission to Council authority. Dismantle all military capabilities. If you refuse, we will come to your system and force compliance. You cannot win. You are primitives playing with weapons you do not understand. Choose wisely. The response came from Admiral Yunji. She commanded Earth's newest and largest warship, a vessel called the Indomitable. The ship had been built in secret in the outer solar system. It was enormous and bristling with weapons that combined human innovation with stolen alien technology. Yunji's response was broadcast across the same frequencies. Her voice was calm and cold. You executed our captain for showing mercy. You call compassion a crime? You come to our home to threaten us with extinction? We have only 3 words for you. Come and try. The Council fleet entered the Sol system, expecting an easy victory. They found hell waiting for them. As soon as the fleet crossed into the system, the hidden weapons platforms opened fire. Missiles streaked from disguised asteroids. Energy beams lanced out from positions the Council had not known existed. The neat formation of the invasion. Fleet became chaos in seconds. Human ships emerged from hiding positions near Jupiter and Saturn. They did not fight like the Council expected. Council doctrine was about overwhelming firepower and direct confrontation. Humans fought like guerrillas. They struck fast and disappeared. They used the system's natural resources as weapons. Captain Deho commanded a human destroyer called the Retribution. He had trained under General Minho for 15 years. He knew his ship could not survive a direct fight with Council cruisers. So he did not fight directly. Deho led his squadron into Saturn's rings. The Council ships followed, confident in their superior shields. What they did not know was that the rings had been seeded with mines months ago. As the Council ships navigated through the ice and rock, explosions tore through their formations. The battle spread throughout the Sol system. Near Mars, human fighters swarmed a Krell battle group. The Krell were used to fighting with perfect coordination. Human pilots were chaotic and unpredictable. They broke formation constantly. They attacked from impossible angles. The Krell hive mind could not adapt fast enough. Admiral Yunji, aboard the Indomitable, engaged the Council flagship directly. The 2 massive ships traded fire at close range. The Council flagship was larger and more heavily armored, but the Indomitable was faster and equipped with weapons that targeted specific weaknesses in Valorian's shield. Technology. The flagship's shields failed after 20 minutes of combat. Admiral Yunji ordered all weapons to fire. The Council flagship was crippled, its engines destroyed and hull breached in dozens of places. But humans were paying a price too. Earth's orbital platforms were being destroyed one by one. Human ships were exploding. Thousands were dying every minute. The defense was succeeding, but at terrible cost. Captain Deho's squadron was down to 3 ships. They had destroyed 7 Council vessels, but taken heavy damage. Deho looked at his crew. They were exhausted and wounded, but still fighting. He thought about Captain Hyun. He thought about the execution they had all watched. "Listen up," Deho said to his crew. "We are not going to let them reach Earth. We are going to stop them here, no matter what it takes." He plotted a course directly toward a cluster of Council cruisers. His remaining ships followed without question. They knew what he was planning. A suicide run. The 3 human destroyers accelerated to maximum speed. Council ships tried to intercept them, but the human vessels were too fast and too determined. Deho armed every weapon on his ship. He set the reactor to overload. His last transmission was heard across the entire battlefield. For Hun, for humanity, we do not forgive. The 3 ships crashed into the Council formation at near light speed. The resulting explosions destroyed 11 Council vessels and damaged 15 more. Captain Deho and his crews were gone, but they had broken the back of the Council's assault. The battle raged for 14 hours. When it finally ended, the Council fleet was in retreat. They had lost over 200 ships. The Sol system's defenses had been devastated, but Earth survived. Millions of humans were dead, entire orbital cities destroyed, but the planet itself was safe. More importantly, humanity had done the impossible. They had made the Council bleed. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had lived under Council rule for centuries learned that the all-powerful Council could be defeated. The reaction was immediate. On a planet called Vorish, a species called the Vorn had lived under Council occupation for 300 years. They had resources the Council wanted, so they were forced to mine for the Council's benefit. When news of humanity's victory reached them, they rioted. They destroyed Council facilities and drove the occupying forces off their world. On 12 other worlds, similar rebellions began. Species that had been afraid to resist suddenly found courage. If humans could fight back, maybe others could too. Ambassador Nari seized the moment. From her command ship in the Abyss sector, she transmitted a message on all frequencies in every known language. "People of the galaxy, we are humans, and we have something to say. The Council executed our captain for showing mercy. They came to destroy us for refusing to bow. We fought back because we believe in a simple truth. No one should be punished for compassion. No one should live in fear of showing kindness." She continued, her voice carrying across light years. "Any species that has suffered under Council laws, any civilization that has been exploited or ignored, any people who dream of freedom, we offer you alliance. Together, we are stronger than they want us to believe. Together, we can build a galaxy where mercy is not a crime." In the days that followed, 17 species secretly contacted humanity. They wanted to join the fight. They wanted freedom from Council rule. They were willing to risk everything for a chance at something better. The Council held another emergency session. Velmuth looked out at the assembled representatives. Many looked afraid for the first time in their long lives. "This is no longer a human problem," he said quietly. "This is the beginning of a civil war." He was right. The galaxy was starting to fracture. Species were choosing sides. Old alliances were breaking down. The Council's grip on power was weakening with every passing day. On Earth, the ruins of orbital defense platforms, humans mourned their dead and rebuilt their defenses. General Minho addressed his surviving forces. "We won this battle, but the war is just beginning. The Council will come again, and next time they will be ready for us. We need to be ready too." Dr. Sora was already working on new weapons. Commander Jiho was coordinating with the species that had pledged alliance. The galaxy was at war. What began as humanity's fight for justice had grown into a revolution that touched thousands of star systems. Species that had been silent for centuries were now raising their voices. The Council's perfect order was falling apart. Chancellor Kyung stood in the command center on Luna Base, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red indicators showed Council-controlled space. Blue indicators showed territories held by what was now called the Free Stars Coalition. There was a lot of red, but the blue was growing every day. Kyung had been a professor of history before the war. She taught students about Earth's own revolutions and struggles for freedom. Now she was leading humanity through its most important moment. She was a civilian thrust into military leadership, but she had something the Council lacked. She understood why people fight. She opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the entire galaxy. Her message was simple but powerful. To all species, in all places. The Free Stars Coalition stands for one principle. Every civilization deserves the right to choose its own path. We do not seek to replace one tyranny with another. We seek only freedom. The freedom to show mercy without fear. The freedom to determine our own laws. The freedom to be more than slaves to ancient rules written by the powerful. Her words reached billions of beings on thousands of worlds. Some ignored her. Many listened. And a growing number decided to join. The war was not simple. It was not humanity versus the Council. It was chaos. Some Council species remained loyal. Some defected entirely. Many split into factions, fighting civil wars within their own territories. The Valorians were divided. The younger generation questioned their rigid adherence to law. The older generation saw any flexibility as the path to chaos. Valorian fought Valorian in a conflict that broke families apart. The Prelim collective shattered into isolationists and interventionist factions. Some wanted to withdraw from galactic affairs entirely. Others wanted to use the chaos to expand their territory. Their homeworld became a battlefield. Even the Krell, with their unified hive mind, began to show cracks. Some Krell drones started questioning the hive's absolute obedience to Council directives. It should have been impossible, but humanity's message was somehow reaching even them. Colonel Junho commanded Earth's Special Operations Forces. His units operated behind enemy lines, conducting raids on Council infrastructure. But Junho had learned something important. Wars are not won only by destroying things. They are won by winning hearts. His forces targeted supply depots, but always gave advance warning to evacuate civilians. They disabled communication arrays but never fired on medical facilities. They captured Council soldiers, but treated them well and released them with messages for their families. This approach was revolutionary. The Council's way of war was about overwhelming force and total victory. Humanity fought differently. They showed that strength did not require cruelty. Word spread among Council troops. The humans would accept surrender. The humans did not torture prisoners. The humans actually followed their own principles, even in war. Desertion rates among Council forces began to climb. Dr. Mina had watched her closest friend executed by the Council. She had sworn to make them pay. But revenge had transformed into something more meaningful. She led what became known as the Mercy Brigades, military units that specialized in non-lethal combat. Her teams used weapons that stunned rather than killed. They developed tactics that disabled enemy ships without destroying them. When possible, they avoided fighting altogether, choosing negotiation over violence. Many in Earth's military thought this was foolish. Wars were won by killing the enemy, not by being gentle with them. But Dr. Mina's approach was winning something more valuable than battles. It was winning allies. A Valorian captain named Sylph defected to the Coalition after his ship was disabled by Mina's forces. Instead of being killed, he and his crew were treated with respect. Their injuries were healed. They were given food and comfortable quarters. When Sylph asked why, Dr. Mina told him, "Because we are not fighting to become like the Council. We are fighting to be better than them." Sylph and his entire crew joined the Coalition. They were not the only ones. The turning point of the war came at a place called Kelter Station. It was a massive trading hub considered neutral territory. Millions of civilians from hundreds of species lived and worked there. When Council forces tried to seize it to cut off Coalition supply lines, The battle that followed would change everything. Admiral Yunji arrived with the human fleet alongside ships from 24 allied species. Each vessel carried the markings of their own culture, but they all flew the same banner. A white star on a black background. The symbol of the Free Stars Coalition. The battle was brutal. Council forces had fortified the station with powerful weapons. Coalition ships had to fight through layers of defense to reach the docking bays. The station itself became a war zone, as soldiers fought through corridors and cargo holds. For 3 days, the battle raged. Fires broke out across multiple sections. Life support systems failed in some areas. And then disaster struck. A weapons hit breached the civilian sector, exposing thousands of non-combatants to vacuum. Lieutenant Tai Yang was leading an assault team near the breach. His orders were clear: press the attack while the Council forces were disorganized. Taking the station was critical to the Coalition's strategic position. But Tai Yang looked at his scanner and saw the life signs fading in the civilian sector. He thought about Captain Heian. He thought about the Millith children they had saved together. He thought about what that choice had cost. Then he made his own choice. All units, this is Taiyang. Abort the attack. Redirect all ships to the civilian sector. We have people dying, and we are going to save them. His second-in-command protested. Sir, we will lose our tactical advantage. The enemy will regroup. Do not care, Taiyang said. We are not going to win this war by letting civilians die. Move now. His squadron diverted from the fight. They raced to the breach section and began emergency evacuations. Council soldiers in the area watched in confusion as human troops ignored them to save civilians. Those civilians included Valorians and Prelim and Krell, species that were technically the enemy. A Valorian mother named Sareth clutched her child as a human soldier carried them both to safety. The soldier's armor was damaged and leaking air, but he kept going until they reached a sealed section. Sareth looked at the human and asked, Why? Why save us? We are your enemies. The soldier removed his helmet. It was Taiyang. He smiled at her tiredly. You are not my enemy. You are a mother trying to protect her child. That is all that matters. The moment was captured on video by station security systems. It spread across the galaxy within hours. Human soldiers carrying Valorian children, coalition medics treating wounded council troops, Dr. Mina, personally performing surgery on a council admiral whose own forces had abandoned him. The battle ended in a tactical stalemate. Neither side fully controlled Kelter Station. But strategically, the coalition won something more important than territory. They won the information war. Billions of beings across the galaxy saw the footage. They saw humans and their allies choosing to save lives over winning battles. They saw compassion in action, not just as words, but as deeds. Support for the Council began to collapse. More species defected. Entire fleets switched sides. Even some Council leaders started questioning whether they were on the right side of history. Ambassador Nari received a secret communication through encrypted channels. It was from a faction within the Valorian leadership. They wanted to talk about peace. They were tired of the war. They wanted to find a way to end it before the entire galaxy burned. Nar brought the message to Chancellor Kyung. The two women sat in silence for a long moment, considering what this meant. It might be a trap, Nari said. Kyung nodded. It might be. But Captain Hoon died because he chose mercy over safety. If we ignore a chance for peace because we are afraid, what does that make us? It makes us smart, Nari said, but not necessarily right. Young made her decision. Set up the meeting. Tell them we will talk. But we talk as equals, not as defeated species begging for terms. The war continued. But now there was something new in the air. Hope. The possibility that this might end without one side completely destroying the other. The possibility that the galaxy might actually change for the better. On Earth, people watched the news and wondered what came next. 3 years of war had cost millions of lives and countless resources. But it had also proven something important. Humanity was not alone. The galaxy was full of species that wanted freedom. that wanted the right to show compassion without fear. The Council's narrative had crumbled. They were no longer the guardians of galactic order. They were the old power trying desperately to hold on to control. And the galaxy was ready for something new. Dr. Sora continued working on new technologies. Commander Jiho coordinated intelligence operations. General Minho prepared defenses. But now they also prepared for another possibility: peace. The galaxy burned with the fires of war. But sometimes fires do more than destroy. Sometimes they clear away the old and dead, making room for new growth. Humanity had lit this fire. Now they would see what grew from the ashes. The peace talks took place in orbit around a dead world called Ashen. It was chosen specifically because it had no value to anyone. No resources. No strategic importance. Just a cold ball of rock circling a dying star. Neutral ground in the truest sense. Two fleets faced each other across empty space. On one side, the ships of the Galactic Council. On the other, the vessels of the Free Stars Coalition. Both sides were armed and ready to fight, but both sides were also exhausted. 3 years of war had bled the galaxy dry. Chancellor Kuhn arrived aboard a transport ship with minimal escort. She refused heavy security, saying that if the Council wanted to kill her, no amount of guards would stop them. She entered the negotiation chamber to find it arranged in a very specific way. There was no head at the table. Every seat was equal. It was a small thing, but symbolic. Waiting for her was Chief Arbiter Velmuth. The ancient Valorian who had presided over Captain Hyan's execution now sat as the Council's chief negotiator. His crystal body looked darker than before, as if the war had aged even him. Around the table were representatives from dozens of species, both Council and Coalition. Velmuth spoke first. His voice carried none of the cold authority it once had. Instead, there was something almost like regret. Chancellor Kuhn. We meet under circumstances I never imagined. When we executed Captain Hune, I believed we were protecting the galaxy from chaos. I believed that strict adherence to law was the only way to prevent species from destroying each other. He paused and the chamber was silent. I was wrong. Not about the need for order, but about how to achieve it. We became so focused on enforcing laws that we forgot why those laws existed. They were meant to protect life, not to become more important than life itself. Kyung listened carefully. She had expected arrogance or attempts at manipulation. Instead, she heard something that sounded like genuine reflection. Chief Arbiter, why did you agree to these talks? Because the alternative is the complete destruction of galactic civilization, Velmuth said simply. We have fought for 3 years. Billions are dead. Entire worlds are scarred. And for what? To prove which side is stronger? I have lived for 600 years. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I do not want to see this galaxy fall because we were too proud to admit our mistakes. Other council representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some clearly disagreed with Velmuth's words. A prelim diplomat named Kesh spoke up. The humans started this war. They refused to accept our judgment. They should be the ones seeking peace, not us. Kuhn turned to face Kesh. Her voice was calm but firm. We did not start this war. You started it when you executed a good man for showing mercy. Everything that followed was your choice. You could have listened when we protested. You could have reconsidered your laws. Instead, you sent a fleet to destroy us. We simply refused to die quietly. She stood and walked to a large window that showed the dead world below. Look at that planet, dead, lifeless. That is what happens when species forget that survival matters more than pride. We can continue this war until the entire galaxy looks like that world. Or we can be brave enough to change. The negotiations nearly collapsed several times over the following days. Hardliners on both sides resisted compromise. A group of council loyalists tried to assassinate the peace delegation, only to be stopped by a joint security team of human soldiers and Valorian guards, who had learned to work together. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Millith delegation arrived, led by Korath, the elder who had first met Captain Hyan. The Millith were not a powerful species. They had no military might. They had only their story. Korath stood before the assembled representatives and spoke. My people should be extinct. The council's law said we must survive on our own or die. We were dying. Then humans came and saved us, knowing they would be punished. Captain Huyan carried my grandchildren in his own arms while fire rained from the sky. He died so we could live. The old Milith's voice grew stronger. Now you sit here arguing about who was right and who was wrong. You debate laws and principles and pride. But I ask you this, how many civilizations could flourish if you spent less time enforcing rules and more time protecting life? How many species could reach their potential if given help instead of being left to struggle alone? The chamber was silent. Even the hardliners had no immediate response. Korath's question hung in the air like a challenge. It took 2 more weeks of negotiation. But finally, an agreement began to take shape. The Galactic Council would be dissolved and reformed as the Galactic Confederation. Instead of a small group of powerful species making decisions for everyone, each species would have equal representation. Laws would still exist, but with built-in mechanisms for review based on compassionate grounds. A new institution called the Mercy Court would be established. When strict law conflicted with moral imperative, cases could be brought before this court. Dr. Mina was nominated to serve on its founding panel, and after initial reluctance, she accepted. The final agreement was called the Heian Accords, named after the captain whose death had sparked the revolution. When Chancellor Kyung signed the document, her hand shook slightly. This was the moment everything had been leading toward. The war officially ended with a ceremony on Valorum Prime, same place where Captain Heian had been executed. Instead of a place of death, it would now become a memorial to peace. A massive structure was built, listing the names of all casualties from both sides. Millions of names etched in crystal and stone. At the center stood a statue. It showed Captain Hyun kneeling, holding a Milith child in his arms. His face was gentle and determined. The inscription below read simply, "He chose mercy." Ambassador Nari delivered the dedication speech. She looked out at the thousands gathered. Seeing humans and Valorians and Prelim and Krell and hundreds of other species standing together, Captain Hyun died because he believed that compassion was more important than obedience. The galaxy told him he was wrong. But look around. See who is here. See who survived? We did not survive because we were the strongest. We survived because we refused to abandon our principles. She continued, her voice carrying across the memorial grounds. This statue does not show Hain as a warrior or a leader. It shows him doing what he did best, protecting the innocent. That is what we must remember. Power without compassion is tyranny. Law without mercy is cruelty. We fought a war to prove this truth. Now we must build a peace that honors it. Velmuth approached the memorial last. The old Valorian who had ordered the execution now stood before the statue of the man he had killed. He placed a crystalline flower at its base, a Valorian symbol of deep respect. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. I was wrong. He was right. I will spend the rest of my existence trying to build the galaxy he believed in. 5 years passed. The galaxy transformed in ways no one had predicted. The new Confederation operated on principles humanity had brought with them from Earth. Mercy was not weakness. Compassion was not primitive. The true measure of civilization was not power, but the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. Chancellor Kyung retired from public life. She returned to Earth and planted a garden that included plants from 100 worlds. It was her way of celebrating diversity and growth. Sometimes students visited to hear her stories about the war and what came after. Admiral Junji commanded the Confederation's defense forces. Ships that had once fought each other now patrolled together. Former enemies served side by side. United by a common purpose, protecting the peace they had worked so hard to achieve, Colonel Junho trained new peacekeepers at an academy on Mars. He taught them that the first duty of a soldier was to know when not to fight. That true strength came from restraint, not aggression. His students came from dozens of species, learning together. Dr. Mina worked tirelessly on the Mercy Court. Every day brought new cases where law and compassion conflicted. Every day she asked herself what Heian would have done. She did not always know the right answer, but she never stopped trying to find it. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements. Species still competed for resources and influence. But now there was a framework for resolving disputes without war. Now there was a system that valued life over rigid obedience. On Earth, in the rebuilt Bizin Memorial Center, a permanent exhibit told the story of what became known as the Freedom War. Children from many species visited to learn how one execution sparked a revolution, how humanity's refusal to accept injustice had changed the course of galactic history. The exhibit's final room contained a recording recovered from the Taiguk's computers. It was Captain Heian's last message, recorded before his trial. His face filled the screen, calm and resolved. If you are watching this, I am probably gone. Do not mourn too long. Instead, remember why. I chose to save lives over following orders. I believe that compassion matters more than compliance. If my death means anything, let it mean this. Never stop being human. Never let the universe convince you that mercy is wrong. And if they try to make you into something cold and unfeeling, burn down their world and build a better one. The recording ended, but Heian's words lived on. They were taught in schools across the galaxy. They were quoted in Confederation proceedings.